The leadership of the Itsekiri ethnic nationality has called on the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to abide by court rulings by reverting Warri South constituency wards from 12 to 10. Addressing journalists at a press conference at the Olugbushere Residential Hall in Warri, the Egogo of the mouthpiece of Warri Kingdom, Chief Robinson Ariyo, on behalf of the concerned Itsekiri citizens, said that INEC has remained adamant in executing various court judgments and rulings over the years. He noted that the press conference, that's the Egogo speaking, necessitated by the swift and impulsive reaction of INEC to the 2022 Supreme Court judgment, which ordered the redelineation of wards in Warri Federal Constituency delivered on the 2nd of December 2022. Now, joining us on the show is Chief Robinson Ariyo, the Egogo of Warri in Delta State. Great to have you, sir. Let's go straight to it. Can you take us through?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, take us through what is happening.
Well, what is happening is that there is an official instrument that captures the number and structure of wards, political wards, of all local government council areas in Nigeria. And that gazette was published in 1992. And there is no other gazette, there is no other instrument capturing the number and structure of wards across the country. Mind you, we have 774 local government council areas. Now, what happened, the genesis of this whole thing was that in 1996, there was a malignant gerrymandering of Warri South Constituency 1 and 2. So much so that most of the wards that belong to Itsekiri were decapitated. And those that belong to our rival tribes were enriched. In other words, for instance, if you are very familiar with Warri, you see Ubeji and Obodo are communities that are highly populated. Prior to the illegal gerrymandering, what happened was that Obodo was a ward of its own, Ubeji was a ward of its own. So what they did with that illegal gerrymandering was to lump the two together, as a result of which they also added some other communities as one ward. And what they did to the existing ward structure in our rival communities was to multiply them. And then they increased the number of wards by so doing to 12 as against 10. Then, what as law-abiding people, you know that the Itsekiris are reputed for law obedience. And we went to court in 1996. Now, when we challenged that decision, the decision was our challenge was on the basis of Section 114 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, which stipulates the only condition under which there will be an attempt to touch the number and structure of wards in any part of Nigeria. And we were successful. That was in 1997. The judgment was entered in our favor in 2003. Now the judgment was served on INEC, and that was about 21 years ago. Between 21 years ago and today, we have been going to court one item after the other, trying to get INEC to obey this judgment without success. And let me tell you something. INEC immediately appealed against that judgment. INEC's appeal was dismissed in 2018. Up till now, let us not forget that INEC is a product of law. How come that INEC, that is a product of law, will be disobeying the same law that created it? Now, come back. Between 2003, when we got the judgment, and today, we have gone to court more than 7 times. We attempted to enforce this judgment, and INEC came to us and begged that we should just give them time, that they will implement the judgment. They never did. As we go on this program, I will be able to give you the particulars of each of the cases that we instituted against INEC to ensure that this judgment is brought to life, this judgment is executed. Now, during this period, only in 2011, a group of people went to court without even our knowing, and they got a judgment in 2022 from the Supreme Court. And in less than 2 years, INEC is already calling stakeholders for a meeting to implement that judgment. one will wonder, any reasonable man who listens to the fact that a judgment was entered by a competent court of law, the Federal High Court in Benin, in 2003, and INEC was aware of it, all efforts to make INEC to obey this judgment has been futile. All of a sudden, just 2022, a judgment has come, and INEC, and that was why we described INEC's response to the implementation of judgment as impulsive and swift. Because if in 21 years you failed to execute a judgment on the one hand, and in less than 2 years you are calling stakeholders to implement that judgment, then it is obviously double standard. And the rule of law dictates that you should treat all parties equally. Why? Why should it be in the case of Itsekiri that we have to wait for 21 years, up till now, no implementation, no single stakeholders meeting to call for the execution of the judgment, whereas in the case of the judge, just 2 years ago, you are now calling for a stakeholders meeting. Now, the second point we need to make is that you want to review constituencies. What do you want to review? What's the baseline? What's the default position? You have been told that 10 ward structure is the legal ward structure and that 12 ward structure is illegal. On what basis do you want to do this review? If you are asked to review the constitution of a country and you are told that one is illegal and the other one is legal, it is the one that is legal that you work with, not the one that is illegal. So the first thing that INEC necessarily needs to do is to first of all dismantle the illegal 12 ward structure and erect the legal 10 ward structure before you can talk about review. Review presupposes the existence of a valid ward structure. The 12 ward structure has been said by courts times with that number to be illegal, and therefore we are saying that you cannot seek to do anything legally without dismantling that illegality, that 12 ward structure. It is sad that payments are being made from taxpayers' money to members of the House of Assembly that were elected on the basis of this illegal structure. It's a sad thing. I do not know of any part of the world where this kind of illegality can obtain.
Well, thank you, Chief Ariyo. As you've mentioned, INEC itself is a product of law, so one would be quite taken aback as to why it's taking them so long. 21 years is a long time. And on that period, INEC has seen changes in leadership, same as the governor, president. So what would you say is the challenge for INEC? Because as you mentioned, is it just a lack of will to do it? Or what have you ever, you said there's been no stakeholder meeting held with you in 21 years. So what would be the persuasion for INEC to refuse to follow the court order?
You see, what is happening in the Niger Delta region is sad. We have people who are allowed to amass arms. It is illegal in this country for you to own a gun. And yet the government and the military even knows that civilians have military-based arms. It is the fear of these arms. Recently, you will see that certain military men, certain soldiers were killed. INEC has confessed that they are afraid of the level of arms that some of these people own. And as you can imagine how as many as not one, not two, not three, but 11 soldiers were killed by who? By civilians. You see, we have to get serious in this country. If possession of firearms is illegal, it remains illegal. We can't have people possessing war. I mean, we're not talking about light arms. We're talking about heavy arms. You know, so because of fear or force, we have to ask ourselves a question. Are we operating a state of law or a state of lawlessness?
Okay, Chief Ariyo.
The inability of INEC, the fear. INEC is afraid to implement a judgment. Mind you,
Chief Ariyo,
we have 3 arms of government. One is to make law, the other is to interpret the law, and the other is to execute the law. The law has been made, the law has been interpreted.
Chief
INEC
Ariyo,
is a part of the executive. INEC ought to implement the law. So INEC has to work. It is a challenge, and that is what is happening in Niger Delta region. Even the multinational companies are afraid. As I speak to you, there are communities that have been sacked by civilians and taken over. Names change.
Chief Ariyo,
we are living in a state of nature, which the Marxists call the state of nature, a state where might and not the law is right. Where life is short, brutal and nasty. I can tell you that no fewer than 100 people have been massacred, have been killed, and displaced from their home and taken over. And as I speak with you, the names of some of those communities taken over have been changed. So we are crying out to the world that what we live in the Niger Delta region is a state of nature.
Ariyo, if you can hear me. Chief Ariyo, if you can hear me. Because, I mean, he's told us only one side of the story. I need him to clarify, a number of issues. Because there was a Supreme Court judgment in 2022. I don't imagine that a Federal High Court judgment will be superior to a Supreme Court judgment of 2022. Federal High Court ruling that is quoting was in the 90s. Yeah. Yes. Chief Ariyo, if you're back. Hello, Chief Ariyo? Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, quickly. There's something I need you. Yes, I can hear you.
You have made it.
I can hear you. I need you to clarify something.
You have made a point just now.
No, did you hear me when I was making that point? No, let me clarify it further. Now,
I heard you.
There are two issues here. Okay, just hold on. Just hold on. Now, there is a Federal High Court ruling that you referred to, which was in the 90s. But in 2022, on the same matter, there was a Supreme Court judgment, right?
Yes.
Which says there should be no further elections.
No. Let me correct it. No, let me correct it. Let me correct it. You see, the decision of the Federal High Court, which was reaffirmed by the Court of Appeal, is on a different issue altogether from the decision of the Supreme Court. If you go to section 114 of the Constitution tells you the circumstances, 3 circumstances under which you can recompose or review the structure of constituency. 1, that it has been up to 10 years since you last did it. 2, that there has been a population census conducted necessitating the revisiting of the ward structure. Or 3, that there has been boundary adjustment, interstate boundary adjustment necessitating the recomposition. Now, the case I'm talking about, the Federal High Court case, is about the validity or invalidity of the ward structure and number in Warri South. The Supreme Court case is simply saying that it is up to 10 years delineate. Okay? So, in the first place, let me ask you a question. If you answer the question that the 2 issues are the same, then you will run into some legal contradictions, because if you want to challenge the decision of the Court of Appeal, you don't start a different case. You challenge that case. Otherwise, you will be guilty of what we call in law abuse of court process. Now, a decision was given in 2003, reaffirmed in 2018, about where you are supposed to start from. You want to review. Where do you want to review from? Do you want to continue your 12-ward structure? That decision says 12. We have more than one decision. There's even a decision that was delivered, a judgment that was delivered just last year by Justice Aban,
Chief Ariyo,
who is now at the Court of Appeal.
Chief Ariyo, we need to go. I mean, it's part of the responsibility of INEC to delineate or delimit words, right? But Itsekiri leaders
but when you want to do that, where do you start from?
Just a moment. I don't want to listen to just one side of the story.
Yes.
But Itsekiri leaders are saying that INEC is acting out of disrespect. How is INEC disrespectful in this regard?
Okay. INEC is disrespectful because at this moment, as we speak, INEC has been told in at least 4 judgments that 12-ward structure is illegal. And that is what they are still operating. And that's what they want to operate to review on. The courts have told them that it is 10-ward structure that is valid. Okay. So what you ought to do, first of all, is to dismantle the illegality. How can you build something on nothing and expect it to stand?
Chief Ariyo, maybe the right phrase would then be contempt, not disrespect. Because the relationship of INEC will be with the court.
Contempt is disrespect. Contempt is the technical word for disrespect for court judgment.
With the court, not with a traditional...
Yes.
Not with a traditional community.
Contempt. Yes, contempt.
Of court, yeah. Anyway.
No, it's of court.
Yeah. So, anyway, thank you very much, Chief Robinson Ariyo, for joining us on the Morning Show.